Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Catholic in the Wild. And today I want to talk about 5 lessons that I've learned after being married for over 2 years. So, this past Sunday, my wife and I celebrated our 2-year wedding anniversary, which happened to take place on All Souls Day. And it made us reflect on how much we've grown and what we've endured, and also what we've cherished from our first 2 years of marriage. In today's video, I want to talk about 5 lessons that I've learned that have helped me grow not just as a better man, but also as a more devout Catholic. So the first point I want to talk about today is on the importance of sacrificial love. And within our society, I feel like love is an overused word that gets used a lot with feelings and emotions. But we need to understand that love isn't just a feeling, that love is also an action. And when it comes to sacrificial love, it requires of what I am giving up in order to help serve and desire what is better for my wife. And that could be even in the biggest of things, where it comes to saying giving up. I wouldn't say giving up. I would say, instead of taking time of just relaxing, but maybe taking time to help my wife clean our house or our apartment that we are currently in. And, or even the smallest things too, where right before bed and she needs a cup of water filled, I go and do that. Or in the morning, I just simply make a cup of coffee for her, even though she didn't ask, but me doing these small little tasks, not for my own personal gain, but for me to show that I love and care for my wife and that I want to serve her in the greatest extent possible. So the first point on sacrificial love, where I am giving up my needs in the moment to be able to help be there for my wife. Now, the second point that I want to talk about today is on the importance of forgiveness. It's important with forgiveness because it also brings forth the virtue of humility. And whether you're right or wrong in this disagreement, it's important to show that I am sorry whether I miscommunicated or I misunderstood, and seeking to apologize and to seek forgiveness, and also to show forgiveness when a mistake happens. Not even with, a disagreement, or maybe say I dropped a very important piece of dishware as an example. I didn't. I'm just using this for example. But say if I dropped something that was very valuable, like an heirloom or something, and unfortunately it broke, for my wife to show forgiveness for my mistake, or say on her end where maybe we're making dinner and then something accidentally gets dropped on the floor and it gets ruined. Using that as an example, not a legitimate thing, but just an example. But the ways of how I respond to my wife, that I shouldn't respond in anger or frustration, and she shouldn't do the same to me, but of how we recognize, mistakes can happen, and we learn from these mistakes to become better people, and also to become more responsible and more careful with what we do. And showing forgiveness, but also showing that this one mistake isn't going to stop me from loving my wife, and isn't going to stop her from also loving me. And it's very important to have forgiveness, because when we don't show forgiveness, it can be very prideful, I would say. That when we're not showing forgiveness, it can show kind of like pride, where it's like seeming like better, like, why do you ask for my forgiveness? It's very important that we are to be humble, to show that, a mistake can happen. It's okay to make a mistake, but we seek to become better and learn from it. So that's the second thing that I've learned, is the importance and need to show forgiveness. The third thing I've learned, which has been very important, but also very hard for me to do, is vulnerability. It's important with your future husband or your future wife to be able to open yourself up to them. You don't want to keep anything bottled up, because if you keep any emotions or any struggles bottled up, eventually you explode, and it can make the situation even more messy. And I'm very grateful for my wife that I've been able to become more vulnerable with her, and she's helped me be more comfortable with being vulnerable and describing, maybe something that I'm dealing with, emotionally, or a frustration that I have, being able to explain it, and she's able to listen and understand, and that I can be vulnerable with her, but also that she can be vulnerable with me, and that we are to both be supportive and to be each other's rock, in a sense, how we are to help provide the foundation that they are to be on to help them grow. Which then goes into the fourth point, is on how we've both experienced growth, and including myself, not just in vulnerability, but also too in this next chapter, in this current new chapter of our life. From us dating, we were not living together, being home, to now being married, that we're living together and always present with one another all the time, other than, when we have to go to work and whatnot. But we always are present with each other. So that really brought into the understanding of, different routines. getting used to the routines and habits of my wife when it comes to, housekeeping, and how she gets used to my routines when it came to housekeeping. But also learning from each other and also growing together in that. One thing I can say that I've learned from my wife is her amazing work ethic, and that's helped me grow in establishing a better work ethic and being less of a procrastinator. And one thing that I would say I've helped her with is learning the importance of resting. If you know my wife and you know her family, they are workaholics, which is a great work ethic, but I always make the joke that the one day where they passed away, they would dig their own graves and then bury themselves. That's how much workaholics they are. But it's important that I've shared with my wife on taking time to just rest and being away from the screen, or taking maybe a pause from doing chores, or having to do something, and taking a moment of just to settle, to take a moment to pause, to catch your breath, and take this moment of rest so there isn't burnout. And then this leads into the next and last point, which is the importance of establishing a prayer life and growing in your walk of faith together. Within the sacrament of marriage, we are to keep Christ at the center of our marriage. And what has been a blessing that I've been able to experience with my wife, Sarah, is being able to establish a prayer life and a good devotion to prayer together in our marriage. One example I can give is with night prayer, that every time before we go to bed, whether we are home together or if she's currently away, like she is this week for work, that whenever she is away, we always take the time to call each other and to always say our night prayers together. And we always do an examination of conscience, which I think has also helped us grow together in reflecting in these 4 areas, which within this final point. These are 4 things that we reflected on, and I highly recommend if you're a newly wedded couple, or you're going to be soon married, or if you're dating someone, that you establish a night prayer routine that you go through together. And 4 things to do as a daily examine is: what's one thing that humbled you? What is one thing you need to improve upon? What is one thing you're grateful for? And what's one thing that you're proud of? Maybe relating to you or someone else you're with that day, or something else that was going on in your life. These are 4 things that my wife and I do that have helped us grow in our prayer life, but also to help us grow as people and to grow in our faith. Not only are we taking this time to pray, but also to going to Mass together, being adamant on taking time to go to Mass on Sunday, importance of receiving the sacraments and keeping each other accountable of taking that time to go receive the sacraments, especially the Blessed Eucharist, where we receive Christ's body, blood, soul, and divinity in the presence of bread and wine. This is very crucial to have this component of faith within your life. I want to conclude with a passage from St. Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13, verses 4 through 7. And if you're familiar with this passage, it really talks about what love is. And this, I think, helps encompass within these 5 lessons I've learned on how we are to live out this virtue of charity, which is this virtue of love. So this passage states, "Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things." So with this passage from 1 Corinthians, it can encompass the 5 lessons that I've learned. And I hope this helps you too, for those that are newlyweds and those seeking and beginning to pursue the sacrament of matrimony, that to live out this virtue of love. Thank you for taking the time for watching this video. And I also want to thank you all that have subscribed. We've hit over 100 subscribers. I know it's a small goal, but I'm very grateful that we've been able to experience it. But to help us grow even further, please like and subscribe for those newly watching, and also share with your friends and family to help support this ministry. This is Catholic in the Wild, and have a blessed day.